As someone who grew up Muslim, I'm going to explain to you why the Holy Trinity, the triune God, makes more sense than Islam's version of God, or Allah. First, Christians do not believe in three gods. We believe in one God that exists as three persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. One divine nature shared by three personal identities. And here's why it makes sense. God is love by nature. Love is who he is. But love requires relationship. You cannot have eternal love if God was eternally alone before creation. Like Islam's version of God, Allah. A single person God has no one to love before creation. Therefore, love is not eternal for him. It means God only becomes loving after he creates humans. That makes God dependent. That means God changes. That means love is not his nature. So therefore, the Islamic version of God collapses because that means that God was not complete before the creation of humans. It makes humans the thing that completes him. But the Christian God doesn't need creation to be love, because within the one divine being of God, there is eternal relationship. The Father has always loved the Son has always loved the Father, and the Holy Spirit is the eternal bond of love between them. Lover, beloved, and shared love. That's perfect, eternal, self-sufficient love inside the one being of God. Therefore, the only way that God can be eternally loving, eternally personal, and eternally perfect. And here's the thing. You admit God is beyond our comprehension, yet complain that the Trinity doesn't make sense to you. You admit that God is omnipresent, yet question how he can be in heaven and on earth at the same time. Be consistent. And for people saying, how can 1 + 1 + 1 = 1? That's not a rebuttal. If God is infinite, his inner life is not going to fit inside a first grade math equation. So the Trinity is not a contradiction. It's the only version of God that doesn't require him to be lonely, dependent, or limited. Now here's a simple analogy that helps people comprehend the Trinity. H2O can exist as ice, water, and steam. 3 different states, one substance. And more than one state can exist at the same time. You can have a cup of water with ice in it, so that's liquid H2O and solid H2O existing at the same time. You can have steam hitting a window forming water droplets, so that's gas H2O and liquid H2O existing at the same time. So this analogy shows that it's possible to have one substance with multiple expressions that all exist at once. But this analogy isn't perfect, and here's where it breaks down a little bit. God does not switch between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit like water changes between states. But what the analogy does get right is that one essence can be expressed in distinct forms simultaneously without becoming 3 separate essences. In the same way, God is one divine being existing as 3 persons, not 3 gods and not one God changing roles. The H2O analogy isn't perfect, but it makes one thing impossible to deny. The idea of one thing in more than one distinct form at the same time is already built into creation itself. If the created world can do it, why is it so hard to believe that the Creator can do it? And at the end of the day, we all agree that God is beyond our comprehension, so just because we don't perfectly understand the Trinity doesn't make it wrong. Now I want to give some Bible verses of Jesus talking about the Holy Trinity himself, since people like to claim that this idea was invented by Paul. Matthew 28:19. Baptize them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Not names, but name, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. John 14:26, but when the Father sends the Advocate as my representative, that is the Holy Spirit, he will teach you everything. So Jesus clearly distinguishes the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit while showing how they work with divine authority. John 10:30, the Father and I are one. So one essence, not just in purpose. And the Jews understood he was claiming equality with God, and that's why they tried to stone him. In John 14:23, when he talks about the Holy Spirit, he says, we will come and make our home with each of them. We, not I. So the Father and the Son indwell believers through the Spirit. Again, showing one God, 3 persons, and 1 presence. In conclusion, you don't get to shrink God down until he makes sense to you. You let him define himself, and he did.